Today on Unpacked.
My dad actually called me on the intercom and he picked up the intercom and said to me, be careful because there's guys at the gate. I didn't know, but there were already guys inside the house.
Do you just remember the part of waking up and grabbing your firearm and then it's blank?
Your spinal cord is damaged at this point and your chances of walking again are less than 20%.
Left paralyzed after a home invasion, today's guest is here to share his story. Let's unpack. At 27 years old, Darren Thomas was the picture of health and fitness. As a rugby player and kickboxer, he was a sports superstar in the making. However, in just one morning, everything changed and his life was altered forever. This is Darren's story. Let's unpack. Joining us via VideoCon is our guest for today, Darren. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
So take us back to what type of a person you were before this incident. What was your life like?
Okay, so I was a serious adrenaline junkie and a very active person. So I played rugby. I played for the Lions 7 side. I did kickboxing. I was in the gym every single day. I used to ride superbikes, jet skis, and just basically did whatever could get my adrenaline going and what would, keep me on my toes.
Yeah. So at some point within this time in your life, you were living with your parents.
Yes, I actually had just moved back with them out of a friend's place and moved back to save some money and, take advantage there. And so I'd been staying there for about 3 months again when the incident happened.
So prior to the incident, there was actually something else that happened before. What was it?
Yes, so the incident happened on the Monday night, and I think the Thursday night before that. Yes, there were some guys that actually came into my parents. So my dad just kept hearing the dog bark, and the dog only barked when there was really something. So he kept hearing him barking, and eventually he went outside. He wasn't the kind of guy who carried his firearm with him. So eventually, when the dog barked for the third time, he went outside with the dog to the back of the garden. And as he turned the corner at the top, there were gunshots that came, and then he fired back and ran. And so it was from the top of the garden. It quite a big garden. They fired from the top of the garden, and then he ran back inside the house and went upstairs with my mom, and the guys ran away. And the police came, and obviously they didn't find anyone.
So your father was the type of person that was a licensed firearm carrier?
Yes, he did, yeah. But it stayed in the safe, So
yes.
It was always like that, yeah.
So in obviously that particular incident, you were not home at the time?
So I wasn't home then, and it was about 9 o'clock in the evening. So it was still, they were still up and that, so it wasn't early hours of the morning.
And was anybody injured at that time?
So no one was injured. The guys ran away, so they didn't even come into the house. And obviously he wasn't, when they fired at him, they obviously missed, and so everyone was okay.
And what did the police say about the whole situation?
Well, they obviously looked at the situation. They said they gave chase, but they lost the guys somewhere in the mountains there. It was, on Northcliffe Hill. So they lost them somewhere and never got them. And I guess it was just one of those things, they said that these home invasions are creeping up. There are more of them. And so, I think obviously just to be vigilant, but there was nothing else they could do really. So
then a couple of days later, what happens?
So it was that weekend was actually the Rugby World Cup final. It was 2007, and on the Saturday night was the final. And then Monday night, I went to bed as I would every night, and I was woken up by I'd actually bought a puppy for my girlfriend, and it was staying with me, and it woke me up barking, and I kind of woke up and I thought I heard things, but I thought maybe I'm being paranoid because of what happened.
So talk us through how you experienced it. So you was, woken up by the puppy, thought maybe you're just being paranoid, went back to sleep. What is the next thing that woke you up?
Well, I stood up and my dad actually called me on the intercom. And he picked up the intercom and said to me, obviously I knew the alarm was going off, and he said to me, be careful because there's guys at the gate. And so I didn't know, but there were already guys inside the house.
Wow.
So what I was told is they must have heard me speaking on the intercom, because they made their way up to the bedroom pretty quickly. I had a double level bedroom. I went down and the way the scene was laid out, it looked as though the guys had opened the door into me, because the door opened inwards, obviously. And I must have got into a fight with them because I had scratches and bruises all the way up my arms. And I was then stabbed in the head over here with a screwdriver, and I was shot point blank in the chest.
And of course, you don't actually remember all of these things. These are details that are being told to you after the fact.
Yes, no. So I don't remember anything, but the way that afterwards they would have looked at the scene, in forensics and everything. So that's how they would have figured out it happened. Obviously, because I had all the scratches and the bruises, it looked like I'd grabbed someone or they'd grabbed me. They then said it must have been one guy that had stabbed me and the other guy that had shot me. They were both on the same side. When he shot me, the bullet actually missed my heart by a millimeter, because as he shot me, my heart was beating and it contracted. The bullet went past and it expanded again, and so that was the millimeter that saved my life. It then hit my lung. Ruptured the lung, and then it hit the spine. The spine and the bone fragments actually went into the spinal cord. So that's what caused the paralysis. And my dad, and I was found lying on my back in the room when my dad eventually came down the stairs.
So, in terms of, all of these things are information that was sort of put together after the fact. But in terms of your memories, do you just remember the part of waking up and grabbing your firearm and then it's blank?
So I don't even remember that. I just remember. I think it would have been probably the point where I went back to sleep. The most vague thing I could get is waking up, but that's about it, and I've tried to think back and tried to picture how it went, but it just seems to have blocked itself out, and so the story really had to lay itself out to what happened kind of step for step after that.
So let's fast forward and we'll piece back the details of all the things that happened. Fast forward to the part where, what is the very next thing you remember, and how long after the incident was that moment? So
I then remember a day. I think it was a day later. I was lying in ICU and I was woken up. And when I woke up, I was basically had drains and drips all over, and not knowing what happened, I woke up and I just started trying to pull wires out and drains out because I was completely, and everybody was trying to calm me down, and I just didn't want to calm down. I wanted to get out of the position I was in, and so they actually further sedated me when it happened. And after that, I then woke up again, and I was tied to the bed when I woke up the next time. So that was even worse because I wanted to escape even more. But my girlfriend was at the bedside with my parents, and she actually had to calm me down and tell me what happened so that I knew, to calm down, and said, look, you need these things. They're keeping you alive, and don't pull them out. So that was all the first thing I remember waking up to.
So when your girlfriend and your family are at your bedside and you are a bit more conscious and calm, when and how did they tell you the severity of what had happened to you?
So they told me what had happened, and then they just said. So obviously, I couldn't feel my legs, and they just said your spine's been damaged, and we obviously don't know the swelling on the spine. So at the moment, that's the reason why you can't, feel your legs, and so that was the first kind of moment of, wow, it's kind of realizing something really bad happened, because it's I can't move, and this is obviously pretty bad.
And when they spoke to you about being stabbed, I mean, did the guys leave a knife in you?
So it was a screwdriver, and the stab wound in the head was luckily just on like surface, so it didn't go in deep. It just left quite a big gash on my head, and so there was a lot of blood from that. So when my dad actually came into the room and saw me, he actually thought that I had been shot in the head because of that. And then I woke up and I spoke to him, but obviously those are things I don't remember at all.
Yes. In terms of your dad relaying to you, the horrific scene where he found you, what did he describe to you?
So, after obviously when it was okay to be told, to talk about it, and he just said that when he came downstairs, he found me lying on my back inside the room. And it was obviously, there was a lot of blood because I'd lost from my lung and the wound to my head. So he actually thought that I'd been shot in the head. So he thought I wasn't, I had died. But I woke up and I actually spoke to him, and the armed response eventually arrived, and he actually got the guys to help him take me to the car to get to the hospital because I was losing too much blood. They couldn't wait for an ambulance.
Did he share with you what some of the things you were saying were? I mean, it's unbelievable that you had such trauma to your body, but you were awake and speaking.
Yeah, so I really just, the things that I said to him, it was, when he spoke to me, and I kind of just saw that I was awake. When he took me to the car, all I said in the car was praise God. So I guess I was probably saying that because I was alive, and I just said it a few times. So there wasn't much other conversation going on. I think it was, that was really all that had gone on. So I just kept saying that. Apparently, I just kept repeating that. So
what?
Yeah.
From the story being relayed to you happened to mom and dad while this whole incident was going on?
Well, obviously they were upstairs in it was quite a big house, so they were upstairs in the thing. And obviously when it happened, and he had thought these guys were, outside still, he saw them on the camera. And then when he heard the gunshot, he obviously realized that they were inside. And he was with my mom in the room, and so he came down when he saw them leaving, on the camera, and that's when he found me.
And what did they take?
Sure, they took. They just took they stepped over me in the room still and went up into the top half of the room. They took my laptop bag with the computer. They took my wallet, my cell phone, and then on the way out, they took the TV, and that was about it. I think they tried to steal the car, but they weren't able to. And so that's all they ended up with. And when they left, they dropped my wallet in the driveway. And so that was all they got away with. It was, really for nothing.
Yeah. And I mean, it is fortunate that they didn't have to, go into your parents' room, that they were safe while all of this was happening. But in terms of...
Well, yes.
Now you're in the hospital and they're explaining that your spinal cord is swollen and they're waiting to see what damage there is. How long had you been in the hospital at this point?
So it was in ICU still. I think I woke up the next day after it was really a full day after it had happened. and that's obviously when they told me, and then I was in ICU for about a week, and then I was moved to the general ward from there once I was stable, and obviously they had repaired the lung. I had to remove a third of my lung, and so after that emergency operation was done, that was done immediately, obviously. And then obviously when I was stable to go, then they moved me to the general ward. But within that time, he has the kind of diagnosis of this is what's happened, and so we need to give it time to see where you're going to go, But obviously devastating news for me because, I'm an athlete and I'm active and this is what I do. So to hear that news and think that could be a possibility was probably the worst. It was my worst nightmare because I thought about it.
But there was still hope at the time.
There was, I think for me, there was hope that the swelling would go down and it would change, So at that point we were like, we don't know what's going to happen, so we'll have to just wait and see.
In terms of what that experience is like, I mean, you've woken up, you've experienced the confusion at some point. I'm sure there's pain from your injuries and from the surgery. What is that feeling like of waking up, every day that you are there and you still can't feel your legs, but you are hoping that something might change?
Yeah, so that was I think the most difficult thing for me was obviously I was in a lot of pain, and I wasn't able to even sit up really. So they had me in a bed at a certain angle, but I wasn't able to move much because of the pain, and in my back and the places that I was able to feel. And just being really weak, you've just had a bullet ripped through your body and damaged bones and muscles and everything. So, people often say, what does it feel like to be shot? And it's really the aftermath of the bullet wound is the last thing you worry about. It's everything else, that hurts around it. And so to wake up every morning and just, you wake up and you're hoping that something's changed in those beginning days was really tough because you're trying to get that little bit of hope, coming and just thinking, well, something must change.
So when did you get the final verdict that, listen, this is going to be your new reality, this is the final diagnosis?
Well, we were in hospital for a while, and from the general ward, they then arranged for me to go for an MRI, which I had to then take an ambulance ride to the hospital in Bedford View, and I was based in Flora Clinic. And so that was probably the longest, most uncomfortable drive of my life because I'd been put in this bed and it was really everything was still very fragile. So it was quite a tough drive, and then having that MRI again was pretty traumatic because you get shoved into this tiny dark tunnel, and it's just it's a terrible noise, and it's really when you're in that kind of state, it was hard, and I think after the MRI, the diagnosis was then given by the doctor when we came out, and he then just said his bedside manner wasn't great at all. He just came up and just didn't even break it to us gently. He just said, your spinal cord is damaged at this point and your chances of walking again are less than 20%,
Wow.
And so, yeah, that was pretty devastating to hear and to listen to. And through it all, I am having grown up a man of faith, and I think through it all, I just was still believing that there would be a miracle that would happen, and that I just still had hope that even though this guy said you're not going to walk again, that there was hope that I would, and it was basically just saying I'm not going to accept the final verdict as it is.
In terms of your reaction in that moment, I mean, I'm sure your heart was just on the floor because it was something that you knew could have been a possibility that you were dreading, and now somebody was stamping this new reality you were hoping was not the case. What was your reaction in that moment?
Yeah, I think it was just kind of getting the news, and like I said to you, probably my worst nightmare. It was my worst nightmare. To be able to get put in that position and know that you're not going to be able to do all the things that you love and all the things that I wanted to be an athlete. I wanted to that was my goal in life, and that was my, I wanted to aspire to that. And so just being told that's the first thing you think, that you're not going to be able to do that. And second of all, it's, what a thousand things run through your head is what life's going to be like. It's just, it's a tough thing, because nobody wants to hear that. And when you hear that for the first time, well, basically you think life's over. I mean, that's really the feeling you get. It's the feeling I had. I just thought, well, if that's the case, then is life worth living? Then those are the things that ran through my mind, just because it's the type of person I was. I was. What would I be if I wasn't able to do anything?
In terms of the remainder of the recovery journey, I mean, I'm sure physically it was extremely tough. You were still in hospital for a bit. What did that journey look like, and where were you psychologically at the time?
So I then was, once I kind of had the time in the general ward, and they felt that I was ready to go to the rehab. So the rehab is obviously where they reteach you, to do things. I mean, in hospital, the first thing I had to do was learn how to sit up in a lazy boy, and 5 minutes of sitting up in a lazy boy felt like the hardest work I'd ever done. So I couldn't even do that without passing out. I would pass out for sitting up for a bit, just because your body is now used to being in that kind of position where you're lying flat, and everything else has changed. So the moving to the rehab was a chance to learn how to do everything all over again. I had to learn how to sit up. I had to learn how to move out of a bed onto a chair. Just everything had to be relearned, because my injury is from the chest over here down. And so I only have feeling and movement from there up. So it was, I have no core muscles or stomach muscles or anything like that. So, those are the things. Without that and without balance, it was a really, really tough journey to get into that and to start working through that. And I had really good support. My family was there. My girlfriend, who was obviously my girlfriend at the time, and she was by my side every day in the hospital and every day at the rehab, and really just there for me and helping me through. And it was psychologically, it was difficult. I had, I just kept my faith going strong, and I'd pray and just believe that things were going to get better. And I think that's every day what kind of helped me move further on to the next day, every day as it went by.
In terms of that time, can you recall for us what maybe one of your hardest days in that part of recovery was like?
I think the toughest thing for me in the whole recovery process and going through it was how being such an independent person to start, I obviously had to ask people to do things for me all the time, and I had to ask for help. And the most difficult thing for me was watching the people around me have to do things for me and have to struggle for me, and watching my girlfriend have to pick up the chair and carry it out of the car and come, and do those things for me. That was hard for me. It was hard to and my situation was like they struggling for me, And although they weren't, and they were doing it out of love, that wasn't the way I saw it. I saw it as in, I'm burdening them with this thing where I have to just ask them for everything. And especially in those beginning stages, because you're not strong yet and you're getting there, there's a lot of things you can't do for yourself. There's a lot of things you need to ask help for. And I just wasn't that guy. You get a lot of people like, oh, you're so lucky. You can just tell people what to do and bring. that's like the last person that I was, you know. And that for me was the most difficult. As hard as it physically was and emotionally, you know, that part about really just having everyone else to do everything for you, it kind of got to me, you know. It was tough.
So how long did this whole journey last for of, you know, going for physical therapy, having to relearn until you were at a point where you were back home and having a little bit of a sense of independence?
So that was 3 months. 3 months in hospital. You know, every night. You know, I had, like I said to you, I had friends come. My girlfriend was there every day for 3 months. You know, day in, and then they had to leave at 6 o'clock. And when everybody left, I think was the time where it became the most difficult, because that's just you and your mind and whatever is else around you. You know, and people in the place. You know, rehab as much as it's a place of healing, it's a place of hurt. You know, there's a lot of people and a lot of pain, and you go to bed at night and you listen to people crying and screaming. And so it was 3 months of that, and it was, you know, then they release you and you're actually allowed to go home for your first home visit for a weekend, and then you go and try and adapt to home and try and adapt to independent life and to see, you know, how it goes from there.
What are some of the things you had to face at home that maybe rehab didn't prepare you for? Because at rehab, you're surrounded by medical staff that are mentally prepared on the things to assist you with. But at home, it's a new experience for both you and your family.
Yeah, so I think, you know, they prepare you as best they can, and they teach you how to move and how to do things. But, you know, that first time where you have to go and have that shower by yourself, or that bath by yourself, or with assistance of whoever, it's tough, you know, because you've got to now do it with no help, and there's no one there. And although they've taught you, you have that safety net that's now gone, you know. So it's a great, adapting to it again was difficult. It's you know, having to learn everything all over again, you know, how to sit up when you're so active and you're generally a strong person, you know. It's that's tough to face, and once you do it, but again, you know, luckily I had the help and the support that I did, and it did make it easier. But the difficulty was definitely there, and I think, you know, going out and facing the world, that was the toughest part about it, because I basically felt like I had lost my identity, you know. And I used to be a rugby player and a kickboxer, and I worked, and I was this, you know, I was this social guy and everything, and like, who was I now? You know, who was I going to be? Because that was gone, you know.
So how did you find yourself again?
I think it took a while, you know. My girlfriend, she'd pretty much dropped everything. She was busy with the law, you know, her law career. And she just dropped everything to be by my side and to help me. So, you know, I also felt that, you know, I told her at one stage to leave, because, you know, I didn't want to be that burden. And she was just like, she's not going anywhere, you know. And I think getting to a point of, I got to a really difficult place when I was back home for probably about a month or so. It got to a point where I just couldn't take it, and I just really thought to myself, you know, everyone's struggling too much, and you know, I don't want to be this burden, and people just, you know, I guess they'd get over it if I wasn't here. That people would be sad, but it's the things that your mind does, you know. It's crazy, the things that your mind tells you and that you tell yourself, you know, that people don't need you. And so I got to a really difficult place, and I was ready to actually call it, you know. And yeah, that was hard, because I on the night and on the day that I was actually going to do it, because I'd made the decision, I was lying in bed, and I just started having these thoughts that came to my head to say, look at all these people who love you, and look at all these people who are there for you, and look at how you still have the ability to live, you know, your life. You've got a second chance. And I think I still feel that it was God speaking to me and just giving me that kind of wake up, you know, call of saying, you still have a lot to live for. And so I abandoned it, and that's why I'm here today. I'm grateful for it, and because it was that was really the most difficult time for me. That first 2 months being back and adapting to the real world and seeing how life might be.
How long has it been now since that attack?
So it's been a 14-year journey. It was I think it's for me to have gone through that time. I think now, looking back, so much has happened, and it's to look back and think. I think if I look back and to look where I was so long ago, I can't believe that I'd got through it. I can't believe that when I think back of those first months, if you had told me then and said to me that this is where you're going to be in 13, 14 years' time, I would have called it quits right there. I would have said, if you're still going to be in that situation, not what you're going to have, but this is what you're going to go through. I just would have said, no, I'm not equipped for that. There's no way I'll make it,
What happened with the whole situation and there being any police case and investigation?
So they obviously opened a case of investigation and just to this day, unfortunately, nothing has happened. No one's been found. They had, from the scene, they found fingerprints. They found the car. The guys crashed the car down the road. They found the car. They traced it back to a house where that had been rented by somebody else, and so it ended up really just not finding anyone. And it's unfortunate. It's crazy, but yeah, to this day, there's been no further reports on it.
And how does that make you feel in terms of closure for yourself?
I had a difficult time in the very beginning. I think when I was lying in hospital and I was going through some stuff, realizing this, realizing what this injury actually meant. I lay there and all I wanted was revenge or vengeance. I just wanted these people to feel the same suffering that I was feeling, And I said to a friend of mine, I said, you've got to do whatever you can to find these guys, And I think it's soon after it got to a point where I had to let it go, and I had to just put a hold on that and think, I've got to carry on, because it consumed me so much that I wouldn't have healed any other way. I wouldn't have healed the way I have if I had held on to that and just wanted revenge on one thing. And so I had to let it go. I had to just say, I hope one day these guys get caught for the sake that they don't do it to someone else. But I can't hold on to that anymore. I've got to heal and let go and carry on.
Where are you today?
So today I've come a long way. I'm married to the girlfriend that stayed by me. She never left, even though I told her to. We got married 3 years, not 3 years, but 4 years after it happened. And we just started living again. It took me about 3 years to adapt and start life again. I had that situation where I just kind of didn't want to move on until things got better. I'd wanted to walk before I got married. I wanted to do all that. And eventually I just made that decision to say, life's got to carry on. We got married. A year later, we had our first miracle child. It was something that by the way of science and everything shouldn't have happened. And we naturally had our first baby, and 2 years later had another one. And so today I have a family of 4, and I'm strong, and I'm happy. And there's so much more you can do in life, and there's so much more, there's so much that I'm able to do. And I really am at a place now where I really just want to be able to show people that they don't have to give up if something like this happens to them. It's not, life isn't over. If you dealt with something like this, there's so much you can do, and there's really so much to live for. It's the people around you, for me, and that's what matters the most. you can have all the physical things in the world, but if you don't have those people, and those are the ones that got me through, that pushed me through to where I am today, and that's really the key to the whole of the recovery and the healing and all of it.
When did you abandon, and if you did, abandon the hope of you ever getting to walk again?
So I still haven't. I still believe every day, not out of being, I believe that whether it's by a miracle or whether there's something that happens and someone comes up with an amazing operation or something, I still believe it's going to happen. I haven't given up. And I guess that's what keeps us going. And I'll go day by day. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop living. But yeah, I think having a faith and just believing that there will still be a miracle. It's still there, and it hasn't left me. And I guess and it's not to say that I haven't accepted. People say to you, "Oh, but you need to accept your position." It's not that I haven't accepted where I am. I'm living life to the full as it is, but I always believe for hope and for something to happen.
How do you maintain that adrenaline junkie in you now with the limitations that you have?
So yeah, it started, when I came out of the hospital, I had to try and get back into the gym, and I called up an old trainer. I said, please, can we train? He said, yeah, let's go. I went to the gym, fell off a few machines, and people would stare at me and just have to keep going. So I trained, and then I just, it's a crazy thing because I still love to do all those things I used to do. So I need some speed in my life somewhere and somehow. And I've played basketball for a while, and I stopped that, and then I've been doing a lot of things, going to gym. I've got a standing chair that I actually box in, so I stand and I hit some pads and box, and then I started adaptive CrossFit about a year ago, and it's growing worldwide, but it's quite a crazy thing. There's a lot you can do, and we're training hard. And I entered the CrossFit Open last year, and we'll be doing it again this year. And so I think just keeping going and staying active, and those things are very important for your mental health as well. For me, that's my therapy when I'm at the gym or when I'm training, or that's the therapy I get. I don't need to sit and listen to somebody. I need to be out there doing something.
Are you still afraid? With what happened to you, some might carry this constant fear with them, be it about being in the house or any of those things, and knowing that you are a bit more restricted than before to defend yourself.
So I do. I get, I have that. If I now live in Cape Town, and that, I've been here for almost 5 years, moving away from Joburg, going back to Johannesburg and going back to the house, which my parents still live in. I do. I do get anxious. I get anxiety about it. My main thing is it's not really that I'm afraid when I'm there. The main thing that makes me so anxious is I always want to know what happened whenever I'm thinking about it. I always get upset that why didn't I win? Why didn't I get the upper hand? What happened? And so for me, it's always that. And I don't like it because it just takes me back to wanting to figure out what's gone on there. And so, yeah, I think it is one of those things where you can, fear is maybe not what I'd call it. But I'd maybe say it's more about the anxiety of being in that place and just thinking back to the same things. But yeah, I wouldn't say I live in fear. I don't go to bed at night scared, and so it's.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, and really inspiring us, because you were at such a low point with the kind of life that you had, and then going through this entire physical and mental trauma to be where you are today. Like, I got so excited when you told me about the fact that you have your miracle children, your girlfriend that's stuck by your side, you guys are married and still together, and that you're still physically active. You really are absolutely inspirational and showing us that there's so many things that can be in front of you, but you really can overcome. And I'm so appreciative of your time today.
Yeah, thanks. I think one of the things I wanted to say to you was, when I wake up in the morning, there's mornings where I don't feel like getting out of bed and I feel the pain is too much or just I don't want to face the day. But I've got 2 little people that are looking up to me and a wife that's been there for me. And so I've got to show up for them so that they can see that, Dad doesn't give up, so we won't give up. And I think just for people to know, just you don't have to give up. There's a lot to live for.
Oh, on that note, thank you so much, Darren.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
#Unpacked with Relebogile. As Darren said himself, there is a lot to live for, so don't give up. Irrelevant of how rough your situation is, there is a reason that you are here today still with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night. Next time on Unpacked.
So with me, I have both. So I have what we call a bilateral cleft and lip palate.
Ngisho ukuthi amaloyo because siyazi kuma black society esibuya kuwo yonke into amaloyo.
Yes, sis. You didn't see me lose my mind. Hey, I punched a boy, hey?
Really?
Yeah, no, I did. So I think...
In front of... Because he humiliated
Yeah,
you.
you know what I mean?
Thank you so much for watching Unpacked with Relebogile Mabotja. Make sure you subscribe to my channel where you can get to watch more episodes. But more importantly, you can be part of our online community. Comment down below, share with us who you'd like to see on the show, what story you'd like us to discuss. We love engaging with you. Keep it coming and don't forget to subscribe.